Hey again, it's Regan here from Alter Ego, or Val. Becca's already done a video on just her update, but I thought while I'm sitting here with a hodgepodge project that I've been using a lot of Worbla, not so much scraps, but like pieces that are too small to, cover an entire area. So they've been cobbled together, so you can see like seam lines all over the place, and this is a particularly huge seam, and this is me changing my mind halfway through and deciding to cut a whole lot of stuff off. So there's a lot of seams, and so obviously I want it to be nice and smooth, and as you can see here, this is a seam I was working on a few minutes ago. You can see the darker colour, but as I run my finger along it, it's quite smooth, and so when I take a sander to it, like a rotary tool sander or hand sanding, that will just smooth it out even further, and you won't see any seam at all. Because what I've basically done is I heated it back up and compressed it together as much as possible, so that yes, it forms a big sort of a bit more of a lump, but at least there's no defining join, as you can see here. Like, that's quite clearly two separate pieces of Worbla, whereas here it just looks like I've bunched it up a bit too much. So once the sander attacks that, it'll look like it's just all one piece. Excuse the gritty nails, clearly I've been doing a lot of this crafting. Foam everywhere. So this is the other side of what I'm making, the bow. This is just EVA foam. I think that's 30mm width, and I just carved it down to the shape I wanted and added the black bit there is I think 5mm foam, just to add that detail that I wanted on there. So the raised bits are the added bit of foam, but obviously trying to use up all the scraps of Worbla that I have and all the little bits and pieces, it is possible. So this is sort of me showing you that yep, you can use every little bit, either moulding it back together and sort of using it as like a bit of a clay type substance for sculpting, and if you don't have deco art yet. But I'll just quickly show you. This next bit might get a little bit loud because I'm going to attack this nasty seam here with my heat gun and just sort of show you. This is one of the tools that we use. We just got it from like our local emporium. It's normally with like all the clay sculpting tools. This particular one comes in like a set of 4. There's different shapes. I like this one quite a bit when I'm doing seams because it's not very pointy. You can see it's got a bit of a point on it, but not enough, and I find that really good for seam work because you don't want to accidentally poke a hole through the Worbla to the foam. So I'm going to attack this seam. Let's see how this works, because I'm just doing this on my tablet, so not the best background either, because I work on a wooden board for safety, and keep the heat gun out of the way so that you don't burn yourself. But hold on, here comes the noise. You might be able to, I'm not sure if the camera shows that, there's slightly lighter patches like in there. That's something you want to try to avoid if you can, because that means the Worbla's really hot and it might rip in those areas, so you just want to be careful. And all I'm doing is, let's see if I can get it in shot a bit better, placing the tool on where the seam is, and as I'm pressing down I'm sort of wiggling side to side, so it's and just slowly pushing it from side to side, because the Worbla range, especially the Finest Art, which is the product on this at the moment, is fairly malleable, so you can poke it and prod it. Obviously you just don't want to be poking it with a too sharp an implement, or else you're going to poke holes through it and then have to patch it up and start again. So instead of just shoving it from side to side as you're putting a bit of pressure on, and you can see the difference that makes. Really, this camera is really not in focus, but in comparison to running my finger on this side, which is still warm and malleable, so luckily I can shove that in, like rubbing it on an old seam, it feels very distinctive, whereas here it just feels like it's raised, no distinct line. And so later on, when I pull out the sander, I'll sand down the very heavy areas until it all sort of looks quite uniform again, and just poking and prodding. And if you do happen to get air bubbles, like you can see sort of forming here, again like that bit there's nice and warm, so just basic sewing pin. And I find it's best if you attack, like instead of popping straight on like so, I like to pop from the side so that there's less of that hole showing. And once it's been popped, you just sort of press it down with your fingertips and wiggle it side to side, because it will not only get the air out from that air bubble, but it will also reseal the hole that you just popped to get the air out. So sorry it's not in focus, and sorry about the raspy voice. I've got a wee bit of a itchy throat at the moment, so I hope that's a bit of a help. Bit of a long video, but that's how I like to make the most of every bit of Worbla I have. So the next few days is going to be me slowly working away at all these nasty seams, but eventually they'll all be nice and smooth, ready for a quick sand and a primer and paint. So bit of work now while it's still Worbla, so I don't have to deal with it once I start painting. Cool, so hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week and have a great and crafty weekend.